I am Ahriman, and I'm here to ask you a question. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the Tao. It belongs to the greater good. No, says the Imperium. It belongs to the Emperor. No, says the Orc. It belongs to me. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose the warp. A place where the artist would not fear the censor, where the scientist would not be bound by petty morality, where the great would not be constrained by the small. And with the sweat of your brow, the warp can become yours as well. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fluffenhammer. Roll the music!
Every man lives, not every man truly dies.
Well, brilliant. That one really, that combined two of my favourite things, which is Zeech Chaos Space Marines, Thousand Suns, and Bioshock. Absolutely wonderful. And the application of sort of Ayn Randian ideals, if you can call them that, to Chaos Space Marines, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. That kind of... it places those ideas on an entirely other playing field, really.
Well, yeah, and, Nurgle shuffled his feet, or whatever.
Are you trying to say that Atlas shrugged? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I was trying to do an Atlas shrug.
You were trying to do an Atlas shrugged thing there, weren't you? I'm trying to think of what would be appropriate there.
Nurgle picked his nose. Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, Ayn Rand is one of my most hated authors in existence. To be perfectly honest, I've never come across anyone whose work I find to be so risible. Whose ideas I find to be so risible. Yeah, I mean, that said, I would recommend everyone go out there and read them so they can decide for themselves.
Of course.
Because that's how it works, ladies and gentlemen.
You want to get as much information into you as physically possible and then decide what works.
Absolutely. One of our famous tangents, but go and read what makes you uncomfortable. Go and read what you disagree with. That's kind of the point.
It's why last weekend, when I was at a writers' convention and I was a guest there reading stuff, I decided to pass a little bit of time that I would read some 50 Shades of Grey.
Wow.
To some of the audience, not whilst I was on stage, by the way. I'd just like to add. No. I did this as a bit of a laugh. But I did them in a collection of voices. So it was Skeletor and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Brilliance. Absolute brilliance, yeah. I imagine getting a bit of Mum-Ra or whatever in there would be quite fun too.
I should have done it Skeletor and Mum-Ra. That would have been hilarious.
Well, that's where the worth of 50 Shades of Grey lies, in taking the piss out of it. That's the only thing one can do, in fact. You know, I mean, again, tangent, but have you seen the film adaptation of 50 Shades of Grey?
Good God, no. I don't have enough time left on this planet.
It's the most bizarre thing ever. Because the people making it are trying their damnedest to make a good film.
Mm-hmm.
The people involved, they want careers after. That's clear. But they've been lamped with this execrable shite to make a film from. So it doesn't matter how pretty they make it. It doesn't matter how, well shot it is or how well composed. It's still shite. And that's the end of it. It's so funny to watch in that regard. It's so bizarrely funny to watch.
You see, I've watched the first two Twilight movies, right?
Ah, yes. Now, they're hilarious.
Oh, yeah. There's a point in the first Twilight film where I'm fairly convinced a character needs to be called Dr. Acula. And has like a big flashing light behind him saying, vampire, vampire.
Yeah. It's that old thing of calling, Dracula calling himself Alucard and expecting no one to notice.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But when Dr. Acula turns up, there was a sequence where I'm looking at it on a great big screen with one of my friends, and I'm mesmerised. And I keep saying, do you see it? It's like,
no.
What? Do you see it? well, what are you looking at? Freeze the picture. And I pointed out to the point where the pale makeup stops, so he's got this really red neck, right? And these really tanned hands.
That's brilliant.
And if you look on a 4K
God.
TV, you can see the application of the sponge on the skin.
Just
And
brilliant.
it's,
I
oh
love
my
that.
God, did you even
love
bother? Did you try in any way, shape or form?
No.
But Dr. Acula
Come
is my
on.
favourite character in those films.
Well, my favourite character is the Michael Sheen one. Aro of the Volturi, who turns up towards the end of the series, who's from a totally different film. He basically, him and the other Volturi are kind of like the big vampires. They have stepped straight out of a My Chemical Romance music video. Taking a shortcut via the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They know they're in execrable shit, so they are having a ball with it. Basically.
I might have to watch the last one.
Well, all you really need to do is look up the clips of Aro on YouTube, and they're the best things ever. Because Michael Sheen is like, you know what? I am the Oscar-nominated actor in this picture. No one's going to tell me to tone it down, so I'm just going to do the most scenery-gnawing performance you could possibly imagine.
I have brought my
And he
own knife and
does.
fork. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what he does. That's what he does. He and they use those takes. That's what I love. I mean, if the takes that they didn't use were even worse than that, I can't even imagine. There must have been some sort of just sort of black hole of scenery gnawing that occurred at that point, and reality rearranged itself to prevent itself from collapsing into it.
Everything went
Because
a little bit
it's-
Cronenberg.
Absolutely, because it is mental. His performance is mental
Oh, dear.
and worth watching. Worth watching the film for. I will say that.
I will look this up on YouTube later on. But
Yes,
we are not a Twilight podcast.
No, we're not. No, we are
what-
not. Although we do talk about the undead occasion.
We do, yes, but they're good undead, not Twishites.
Not Twilight
No.
undead. I can't imagine the undead of Twilight doing very well in Sheesh.
Can you
For
imagine?
example.
Can you imagine
Okay.
the vampire, whatever his name is, Edward?
Oh,
He just like turns up and is like, "I'm a monster, twinkle, twinkle, twinkle."
Twinkle. Yeah,
and then you just,
Manfred. You know, on Manfred's doorstep.
Manfred just jumps on him. You're a disco ball.
Utter disgrace is what that would be.
It would be a beautiful
Utter
moment.
disgrace.
It's just the Von Carsteins just hung, draw, and quarter him every hour on the hour.
It would just be an eye-rolling moment, wouldn't it? It would just be ridiculous.
You're no vampire, boy.
Neferata. I mean, can you imagine how she would react to Bella? It's just like this. I mean,
Are you a pet?
Neferata, she's existed for centuries. Mm-hmm. You know, she's seen the collapse of worlds and the deaths of gods and the rebirths of gods, and yeah, she's seen some shit, has this woman, and has done some shit. I think she could probably, eat Bella Swan for breakfast,
Yeah.
very casually.
Some kind of aperitif, I think.
Yeah.
I think she might be confused. It's like, are you a mobile blood bank? why do you exist? She's probably been a
Yes,
little bit
why?
confused. Yeah.
Why do you exist?
I have to apologise, ladies and
Exactly.
gentlemen. I've got a little bit of a cough going on here. I'll try and
Yes.
keep it off mic as best
Well,
I can.
anyone I think who lives in the UK will kind of sympathise at the moment because the pollen count is insane.
Yes, it is. It feels at the moment like this is the beginning of the happening.
Oh God!
and-
Is this just going? Are we just going to talk about really shitty films? Is that what this podcast is going to be about today? Are we just going to talk about like Twilight and M Night Shyamalan, Mamalon?
Allow me to tell you all about the worst film I've ever seen. It's called Devil. It is by M. Night Shyamalan, and it is 5 people in a lift, and one of them's the devil.
It's written by him, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not directed by him. It's written by him, and it's hilarious.
There is a sequence.
Unwittingly so.
There's a sequence in that film where a guy starts saying that when the devil is around, the natural order of things is not working. And then he drops a piece of toast that's got jam and butter on it, and he went, jelly side down.
Oh yeah.
Hang on.
Well,
no.
proof positive.
No, that's what happens anyway.
It's proof positive that there's something supernatural going on, that is. I mean, it's about as convincing as anything I've seen in Most Haunted or anything like that.
Well, that's true.
It's about as convincing.
As I've said many times, there's one thing that Most Haunted has proved, and that is that ghosts don't exist.
Categorically do not exist.
No,
Yeah,
there is no such thing as
absolutely.
ghosts. Most Haunted has proved that.
Absolutely it has. Absolutely. Anywho, well, there is one place they exist, and that's in the New White Dwarf. There's lots of them in that.
Well, yes, and that's a nice little segue. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Age of Sigmar 2.0 is imminent.
Wow, and it's looking really interesting, I must say. I mean, I'm way more excited for this than I was for the original release.
Well, yes.
I've got to say.
This is the cutting off point for me. By that, I mean, this is where the old world is now gone. It's done.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that existed in the old world is no longer available on the app. They are building how the Mortal Realms works. There's some interesting stuff in the new Age of Sigmar. The thing that... Sorry, I'm just moving around a little bit there. I do apologise.
I was wondering if that your bones creaking there, if you're adding sound effects, perhaps.
Yes, I am Nagash.
It must be really noisy in Sheesh. I've always imagined. I know that it's, you imagine it as being kind of like a vast cemetery, so quite quiet. But no, you've got death rattle creatures wandering around. You've got bony things all over the place. So it must be just this endless click, 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 tick, 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 all over the place. It must be maddening.
Have you not read the short story where Arkan the Black just has to oil up Nagash every night?
I haven't. No.
There's a reason for that. It doesn't exist. But
No,
if it did...
I kind of want to write it now, though.
Please do.
Well, given Arkan's relationship to Nagash, that's not outside the realms of possibility.
No. Arkan, oil me.
He is such a fawning swat, isn't he?
He is.
He's like Mortdred from the Visionaries. There's a 1980s reference for you. He is just this fawning, ridiculous... Well, I call him that. He's a Mortarch, so he's actually really powerful and really quite frightening. But when it comes to Nagash, if Nagash said, just casually, light yourself on fire, Arkan, and let me watch you blaze to ash for my amusement, he would just do it and be quite happy in it.
I'm trying to think of how the Mortred's Visionaries... his power, what it sounded like.
Oh, he didn't have one of the power staffs.
No.
He didn't have one. He turned into a beetle.
Yeah, but the only one I can remember is Darkstorm, and I quite like the idea of Arkan the Black turning around and just, what creeps, what crawls, what does not, let all that grows recede and rot.
That would be fun. I mean, that actually does sound like a curse that the undead would use, doesn't it? It sounds like the Curse of Years. Which is actually an undead spell that does exactly that.
Do you know what?
It does exactly that.
If I might actually have that written down at some point if I ever get like an Arkan the Black for my undead, and just every time I do a spell, I'm just going to do that.
Every time, at least every time you cast Curse of Years, you've got to do that.
Yeah.
It's like me and my Thousand Sons, doing my Izzy Wizzy stuff or Abracadabra. Every spell.
What's her name? Into the V. Verulia. I can't remember.
What character is this? Who are we talking about?
The Visionaries character. Her thing was a shark.
Oh, Verulina.
Verulina. Yeah, I couldn't remember her name. Hers would be a good one for like when you're using the Death Guard. Yeah, winds of sickness, illness, most vile, strike down my enemy with disease revile.
Oh yeah, that's very good. I like that. Yeah, that's lots of fun. I'm now going to be trying to find applications for all of the Visionaries chants in Warhammer.
I want to do that as
It's
well.
not that difficult.
No.
It's not that difficult. I mean, the arrows turn, the swords rebel, may nothing pierce this mortal shell. That's very easy.
Yeah.
That's very easy to find a rhyme for. Summoning. The summoning, you can do... I can't remember his name, Sindar, the one who summoned the big beast, you know?
Yes.
Whenever you summon like a greater demon or something, by nature's hand, by craft, by art, what once was one now fly apart.
And of course, pretty much all of the Spectral Knights would be great for Stormcast.
Absolutely they would.
Three
Absolutely
suns
they would.
aligned pour forth their light, fill the archer's bow with might.
Yeah, this is all it's going to be, ladies and gents. We're not actually going to talk about anything serious in this one. We're just going to be like... Well, it's a way of making your games more fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like this stuff, so sue me. You know, I like introducing a little bit of fun into things.
I'm casting a healing spell. Whispered secrets of a shattered age, I summon you, renew this sage.
But yes, there are ghosts.
Yes.
There are ghosts in the new AOS. Lots and lots of ghosts.
Well, the thing that's interesting me most about the new AOS is, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but the book has a map of every one of the mortal realms.
That is fascinating.
That's
makes really
me
fascinating.
Happy, so happy.
It's something that people have been crying out for.
Yeah.
We really wanted to know, because at the beginning of the original AOS, there was and it's sustained, there has been quite a lot of confusion as to how the realms work.
Yeah.
How they operate with reference to one another. You know, are they entirely metaphorical or metaphysical? Are they like dreamlike and shifting? Are they physical planes? It's very difficult to tell in early AOS how that works, but it looks like what they're trying to do is solidify it.
Yeah, so they are becoming their own mythology now. It looks almost like each one's its own planet.
Yeah, its own state, isn't it? It's like its own state of being. It's almost like it's crystallized metaphor.
What interests me, and this is, there are people out there who are just going to start staring at their MP3 players and phones and stuff in a second, and I do apologise for that. What interests me is it ties into one of my big interests in life, which is quantum physics.
Yes.
Right? And it looks to me like each and every one of the realms occupies the same space-time, but at different frequencies.
Right, okie dokie. So it's that thing where they exist in the same space and time, which is impossible outside of quantum physics.
Exactly, yeah. So that's how the realms work. I mean, I might be wrong.
So there's overlap.
Yeah.
So there could be overlap. So you could... This is how the realm gates work, I'd assume.
Yes.
It's how you can move from one to the other, because using the realm gates, you can technically trek from one to the other.
Yes, you can start at the furthermost, whichever the furthermost one is. I don't actually know, and then get through to the other, like to the other far end.
That's really cool. I mean, that reminds me very much of the metaphysics of Sigil, and of the Forgotten Realms. You know, the notion that in the Forgotten Realms, the D&D realms, each metaphysical tradition. And each alignment, so good and lawful, has a realm. It's actually coalesced as a physical place, and they're in a ring, so you can walk from one to the other, technically. I really like that. I think that's a very cool metaphysics to be working with in a fantasy realm.
Yes, because it's not something that you often get in... I do apologise. It's not something that you often get in fantasy as such. But then, this is where things get a little bit weird, right?
Okay.
So, 40k is high fantasy in space.
Yes.
Right? It's more high fantasy in space than it is sci-fi. It has sci-fi tropes and trappings, but the majority of it is high fantasy. Age of Sigmar seems to be having a lot of heavy science fiction attached to it.
Yeah, that's really quite strange, isn't it?
It is a little bit, yeah.
That's really odd, because that certainly wasn't the case back in the old setting, in the old world.
No.
It was very much Tolkien-esque fantasy, more Cockian fantasy. That's fascinating, and I like that's where they're taking it.
Yeah,
I really like they're playing with the really big, colourful metaphysical ideas rather than the more constrained ones.
I'm intrigued to see, because how do I put this? So you're seeing the outside media of Games Workshop, you know, stuff like Vermintide, There are other games as well. Total War, that's the one. I always get the name wrong because I keep wanting to call it Total Warhammer. I know that's wrong. And those are still using the old world.
Yes.
But that's because of the long-term production cycle on these things.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see where the games and stuff are going to take that, if they're going to actually get into the Age of Sigmar.
Wow, well, what they could do with it. I mean, could you imagine a sort of Skyrim-style open-world game where you could walk through realm gates and go to Sheesh, and you could interact with people and characters and creatures from these worlds? I mean, that for me, that would be the ideal.
Yes.
I don't think that will ever happen.
I think that's probably too big.
Yeah, but that would be the ideal for me.
Saying that, Games Workshop is now in a position where they are paying out $6 million in bonuses to their staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. So that's impressive.
Which, by the way, I saw people complaining about, which makes my brain rattle.
There's always going to be complaints, aren't there?
Yes.
Regardless of what they do, there's always going to be complaints.
But yeah, so that's how the Mortal Realms seem to work. I cannot wait until the end of the month where I get my hands on Age of Sigmar 2.0.
No, I mean, I am going to buy this box set too. I am certainly going to buy this box set. And another thing that interests me is they've changed. The dynamic is a bit different now.
Yes.
So they're not fighting over territories anymore.
No.
They are literally... They've taken it again to this metaphysical plane where the godlike characters are fighting for the living souls of the peoples of the realms.
Yep.
And it's not altruistic. None of them are doing it out of altruism, least of which Sigmar. They're doing it to bolster their own power.
Yeah, Sigmar. I don't know, have you been reading through the Malign Portent stories when they've been coming out?
I am not up to date.
Well,
I must say I'm not up to date.
That's okay, George, because right now I am almost completely up to date with turning them all into recorded readings.
Brilliant.
47 have done so far. 47.
Wow.
They're not stopping.
No, they are not. I think this may be fairly consistent for a while.
Help. But anyhow, one of them is it's actually quite cool. There's two of them that go hand in hand. One of them is Cavastus. What's his name? I can't remember his second name now, but it's Cavastus, who is a Stormcast Eternal, who is charged with protecting the forges, right? And he listens to the Six Smiths as they hammer the souls of the Stormcast into shape in order to make them reforged. And whenever one goes wrong, he's the guy who goes in to try and control it so the Six Smiths can cut out the bit that went wrong, which is quite a terrifying thought.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? You've also, I mean, you've got this thing, which is actually part of the Stormcast background, but from what I understand is being really emphasised in this new edition, where they lose parts of themselves as they're resurrected. I mean, essentially they're immortal, unless some other deity or some creature snares their soul somehow before they reascend. Whenever they're destroyed, they just go back to Sigmar.
They do,
and they're reforged. But the process is imperfect.
Yes.
The process is itself imperfect, so they actually lose parts of their personalities the more they're reforged.
So the interesting stuff that comes out of that story is that when it goes wrong, they become something called a lightning geist. Which is just a giant electrical ghost storm, basically.
Right, so they become like products of their function, essentially. They lose their personality and become just avatars of Sigmar's essence.
Yeah. And
that's really cool.
And in the story, why that happens is because he, when he died this time, he died killing his own friends and family.
Right, okay.
Because they had died and they were risen again as undead. And he recognised them. And it's caused this weird feedback in his head where, I lived, I died, it is by Sigmar's will. How many times must I die? How many times? I cannot bear it, I cannot endure. And it, that's what causes him to become the Lightning Geist. So,
well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because that the fact of that dynamic where you are getting these mortal creatures who are dying, then being basically shanghaied by these divine entities, and then resurrected according to their own principles, whereby even their personalities are resculpted to fit a particular agenda.
Exactly.
It brings up some very interesting narrative and moral quandaries, does it not?
It does. And now, in the second story, Sacrosanct, there is a point where Sigmar unleashes the new chamber, right? And the new chamber, whose name I cannot remember, is it the Sacrosanct chamber?
I think it is the Sacrosanct Chamber, but I can have a look for you because I have the White Dwarf in front of me. Just have a look.
So these guys are the ones who were protecting the forges. These are the ones who were keeping the lightning geists at bay. And Sigmar's sending them out in order to find a cure for the basically for the lightning geists, for the reforging process.
Right. So he's trying. Yeah, it's the Sacrosanct Chamber. So he's trying to perfect it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is, because he's unleashed this chamber and they are now leaving to go out into the realms, no one's protecting the smiths.
Oh, that may be a mistake.
Yeah. And it actually says in the story, it is by Sigmar's will, there can be no mistake.
Ooh, yeah. I like the idea. I really like the idea of it introduces something very dark into the Stormcasts.
It does, doesn't it? It makes the Stormcasts
really like.
A little bit more interesting for me.
Yeah, because there is a tendency to take them as a little bit too sort of, what ho, thou evil villain, sort of too knightly and pure. But giving them a little bit of personality, I like that. And it sets them up morally very well against the Nighthaunts. Which are, according to the blurb, they are largely just the dispossessed. They are, whereas Sigmar is looking for warriors and fighters, Nagash isn't.
Yeah, Nagash.
He's looking for thieves and murderers and assassins and the dispossessed of the realms to shape into these spirit armies.
But not the Duradin dispossessed. The dispossessed as a giant hole. Because remember, there is an entire race of dwarfs known as the Duradin dispossessed.
No, we're not talking about those. I mean, sort of, dispossessed humanity largely, I would guess. And they're fascinating. They're absolutely fascinating. I love the miniatures. The miniatures are insane. I mean, this is there have been ghosts in the undead for probably since its inception. To be honest, there have been ghostly forms, but they've never captured them very well in miniature form because you just can't.
Well, ghosts originally, up until what 4th or 5th edition Warhammer, were just take miniatures from other races and paint them as ghosts.
Paint them as ghosts. Yeah, I've seen entire armies where that's been done, where you've got like armies of ghost dwarfs and armies of ghost elves and things. But now they can actually craft these ethereal, hollow entities that are sort of swirling around, and parts of their bodies are becoming ether. They look great. It's a really interesting and underrepresented element of the undead, which is now obviously going to be to the fore.
It's what's getting pushed out there. The only downside to the entirety of how the undead look for me is that I want bones and skeletons.
Yeah, I mean, of course.
But to be honest with you, that is my own personal opinion. And I'm happy with what's coming out because it looks amazing. It just means I have to rework my theme of my
absolutely,
undead.
yeah. And of course, it's not that the bone rattle legions will be going away.
Of course not. No.
They're still perfectly viable. I mean, it's not a replacement for the undead.
No,
the Nighthaunts. They are just an adjunct.
Well, it's like the Kharadron Overlords, isn't it? It's just here is another layer of undead.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. They're another aspect to play with, just as you've still got the flesh eater courts and the vampires and whatnot. So, and I really cannot overemphasize, ladies and gents, how good these miniatures are. I really can't. Not only are they brilliant in terms of their dynamism, but they have this incredible level of character to them.
Yeah, everything in here is it's the proof of why Games Workshop are the best at what they do. This is heads and tails above anything else that's out there.
Well, you've got the Lord Executioner, which I think is the one that everyone will be looking at, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But who the miniature itself has narrative. You look at the miniature and you cannot help but wonder, well, why is it like that? Why does it have an executioner's axe? Why is it surrounded by swirling spirits? Why does it have a big gallows strapped to its back? The reason being that it is the ghost of an executioner that took his duty a bit too seriously, and is now surrounded by the souls of those whose heads he lopped.
The one that gets me, it's the Spirit Torment.
Yeah, I love him with the locks
Yeah.
and the keys and whatnot. Jacob Marley.
Yes. Well,
I would call him Jacob Marley.
do you know what he is?
Jacob, he
It's Marley and Marley. He's basically those locks and traps and everything. They capture the spirit out of people. They're Stormcast hunters for all intents and purposes.
right.
You know, they are there to pull the spirit, the soul out of Stormcasts.
Oh, I see. So this is what they're characterizing the Gash as in the new Age of Sigmar, ladies and gents. He's a bit of a bitch.
Yeah.
he basically thinks that all the souls of the dead in all of the realms belong to him.
Yes.
So by right, and he's not entirely wrong. I mean, he is the god of death. So the fact that Sigmar and the Chaos Powers and all the others are siphoning souls away and perverting them or corrupting them is just won't stand. It's basically blasphemy insofar as he's concerned. So I imagine that's what these things are an expression of. It is Nagash being a bit of a bitch.
Have you read any of the... It's not called The Hunt for Nagash, or is it?
No, I don't think I have read that one.
They got done up as really, really good audiobooks as well, and if you ever get the chance to get them, get them. But each
Well
one
worth it, yeah.
starts with a little monologue from Nagash himself. And it's just him sitting on his throne, musing away, thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
And every single one of them has some kind of petulant, they're mine. Mine, 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 mine. Sigma took my toys away. Meh.
Absolutely, yeah. I kind of like that. I do kind of like that. You know, this ageless entity that is basically a god and can perceive from multiple different perspectives at once, has a little bit of petulance at the heart of him.
Yep. He's brilliant. I love Nagash. I love Nagash,
like Nagash
so
too.
much.
I mean, there is an excerpt from I think it's Josh Reynolds' new book featuring Nagash called The Soul Wars in the New White Dwarf, and there's a lot from Nagash's perspective. He's basically at the beginning he's sat on his throne. He's been there for centuries. He's been there for a long time. He hasn't moved, and he is perceiving from the perspectives of almost every single one of his servants out there in the realms. So his consciousness is split across them. I love that.
That's
I love
cool,
the fact that
yeah.
he is very legitimately divine at this point, Nagash. He is very legitimately omnipresent. I adore that. I absolutely adore it. And because of that, his mind is fractured all over the place. So he perceives reality as this swirling formula, this sort of ever-elaborating tree of potentials. And he has different aspects to his personality that argue with themselves. I love that. Absolutely love that.
And one of the things I really enjoy about Nagash is that he has also got hidden away inside him a very, very nice reference and an homage to Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
Yeah, he talks in all caps.
Oh, it's like death.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. That's brilliant.
And that's the thing
really
that they
cool.
did on purpose as a little homage.
That's very, very cool. Although the death in Discworld is way more friendly
Oh, yeah.
than Nagash.
Yes.
He's got way more of a sense of humour.
Yeah.
That's for damn sure. One thing that Nagash has certainly lost in his divinity is anything like a sense of humour. If he ever had one to begin with.
I don't think Nagash has ever had a sense of humour. I think that whenever someone's told Nagash a joke, he's just stared at them, possibly
I think
for
that's
hours
probably-
on end.
Yeah, trying to figure it out. Trying to puzzle out what they meant. That's probably true, actually. I mean, there are not many records of Nagash's childhood, but those that exist paint him as a very morbid kid. perpetually frightened of everything.
I can't remember who wrote it now, but the Nagash trilogy, him...
Mike something or other.
Yeah, I keep wanting to call him Mike McEvils, and I don't know why. I think that's a guy who makes custom Masters of the Universe weapons.
Yeah, I don't think it's that.
No. But then that makes me think of Mike McVeigh, which makes me then think of a guy whose name I've totally forgotten, who was a giant Boston comedian. Doesn't matter. Moving away from that joke, because it fell apart, Nagash just stares at me. But anyway, that Nagash book often painted him as being the most sensible, serious man who's ever lived, ever.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, when you look back at Nagash, he's coming from a position of absolute rationality.
Yes.
He perceives, unlike all of the other priests of Khemri, he perceives chaos. Mm-hmm. He knows that it exists, and all their gods are nonsenses. They're actually just adjuncts to the chaos powers. So he knows that whenever anything died in the old world, it just went to the chaos powers. Mm-hmm. So that's absolute. That is the absolute. That was the absolute law of that reality. So that's what it's all about. That's why he became the great necromancer. Yeah. That's why he twisted the purple wind of Sheesh into the black wind of necromancy. Mm-hmm. He was trying to insulate humanity against that fate. And he's still at it now.
Yes.
He still hates the chaos powers. When they actually turn up in this excerpt, because he's doing something they don't like. They actually turn... Well, 3 of them do. Slanesh doesn't, because he's preoccupied at the moment, for the time being. Not for much longer, but for the time being. Yes. Anyway, they turn up, and he smiles at them, and he says something like, "Hello, old horrors." And I love that, because the implication of that is that their time is done. Mm-hmm. Or at least they are not the only powers at play anymore.
Yeah.
Because there are the old horrors, and there are the new ones now, and he's one of the new ones.
Which leads on to a very interesting question about Age of Sigmar. Mm-hmm. So, the gods in the old world were always this amorphous background, porn-pushing... by that I mean porn as in a chess piece, not...
Well, if you were Slanesh, it works both ways, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose, yeah. Chessboard, that's sexy. Queen takes your king. Anyhow, right, moving on. They were always...
They're abstracts, weren't they?
Yeah, they were always the thing that existed out there and never really attached themselves to the narrative.
No, they very rarely physically turned up.
Yeah.
Although they did towards the end time.
Yeah.
Parts of them did, anyway.
What we're seeing with Age of Sigmar is that there is that giant mythological scope. As a result, there are conversations with the gods. Sigmar turns up on a regular basis in the Sigindel, and just do. Hello, Stormcast. How are you today?
Oh yeah, I mean this is the main one of the primary differences between AOS and the world and a Warhammer Fantasy Battle is that the gods walk now. Mm-hmm. They are actively involved in this world, and you can actually you can play with some of them. Yep. You can play with Alariel. You can play with Nagash. Mm-hmm. It's only a matter of time before you can play with Sigmar. I've no doubt in my mind that there will be a Sigmar miniature eventually.
I'm in 2 minds about that one.
I'm sure there will be. Even it may not be Sigmar. Maybe it'll be an avatar of Sigmar.
Yeah.
But I don't see any reason why not. If you've got Nagash wandering around, I don't see any reason why you can't have Sigmar wandering around. The other gods, Gorka Morka could definitely turn up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no reason why Gorka Morka couldn't turn up as just this engine of destruction.
Yeah.
The Chaos powers are a bit different. They are a bit different in the sense that they were gods beforehand, and they are still the most powerful gods out there because they are the ones that were gods to begin with. And it's still their game. It's still their game at the moment. Okay, Nagash might be doing stuff that upsets them, but it's not upsetting them that much. Mm-hmm. You know, they're still very much in their places of power. But I don't think it's possible to see representations of the Chaos powers themselves, but I don't see any reason why there couldn't be shards of the Chaos powers, like avatars of the Chaos powers.
See, this is where you get into really interesting concepts, where if you're going to have shards of the Chaos powers, then what point are the greater demons?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the greater demons are kind of... all demons are adjuncts to the Chaos powers. That's how demons are created. They're actually parts of the god that are given a kind of animus and sent out into reality. So they are very much avatars already, as are demon princes to a lesser degree. But I mean more direct avatars, things that maybe, like, they are embodiments of the Chaos powers in the mortal realms. That are filled with their wills, with their essences, whilst they also simultaneously remain in the warp or in the realm of chaos. I don't see why that isn't possible.
Well, what I think we'll probably end up seeing is something akin to fantasy versions of the demon primarchs.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think you probably bang on the money there. I think that is something that's going to happen, because 40k at the moment has the knights. And they are getting a lot of love, and people are interested in the knights, and I am not buying a knight's army. No, can't be made to, don't want to. Honest governor, my eyes are screwed up so tight right now as I try to convince myself that I don't want to buy knights.
Oh wow, they're huge and they're lovely, and what I like about them is if you don't want to spend too much time or in fact too much money, okay, they're big expensive kits, but you only have to buy 2 or 3 and you've got your army.
Yeah, totally.
It's done,
But the what I think we'll see is at some point down the line, not anytime soon, but I think it'll be somewhere down the line, is we're going to see that kind of giant world shaking engine of death appear. There will be a Age of Sigmar version of the knights at some point. Now,
I've no doubt. I mean, it may not even be an engine. It may actually be like a creature or something.
Well, yeah, I use engine in the metaphorical sense.
I've no doubt you're right. There will be armies of big creatures or monsters. And, there is basis for it in the background, because there are descriptions of towns or cities or worlds that move of their own accord because they're on the backs of...
giant worms,
Yes, giant worms or titanic tortoises or something like that, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be. I mean, I imagine one of the armies they could definitely do is the Star Dragons.
Yes.
That'd be perfect. That'd be absolutely perfect for the Titan equivalent in AOS.
But it's not just that. I think that you'll probably see something big appearing for each army. Because I thought this is something that they should have done with the god beasts, the zodiac beasts, which, to be honest with you, kind of came and went.
Yes, they kind of slipped out of the background, haven't they?
Yeah, I think that's something that they could probably make a reappearance at some point, but a bit better thought out. I don't know. The god beasts one didn't quite hit, I don't think.
Didn't quite work out, did it?
No.
I mean, that was in the early days when they were trying to... It really was see what sticks to the wall,
Yes,
So that was one that didn't.
No, which is a shame, but there we go. But I quite like the idea of giant mythological beasts, but I think we're going to see something akin to that at some point, something giant monstrosities.
I've no doubt, because you are right, 40k has got all the cards in that regard at the moment. It's got the Demon Primarchs, which are immense. It's got the big Tyrannid creatures, it's got the Knights, it's got the big war engines. Some bigger kits in AOS is probably on the cards.
I don't see why not.
More dragons.
Yes.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
I want to see more dragons. I want to see, I don't just want to see Sigmarines riding.
No.
Dragons. I want to see Chaos Warriors riding dragons. I want to see other races with dragons. Can you imagine if the Caradron Overlords made a big steampunk mechanical dragon to ride?
For my Caradron Overlords at some point, I intend to try and have a ton of Fire Slayers riding a Sky Shark.
Yeah, I mean, that would be so cool. What about like a Leviathan, like a sea dragon for the Ideneth?
Yeah, completely. That's the type of thing I think would be really cool.
I think that'd be just amazing. I mean, that would really tear my attention away from 40k. I've got to be honest. I mean, 40k is my principal game. It's my principal setting. But that kind of thing would tear my eyes to the Age of Sigmar, and I would probably sit down and start collecting something for the Age of Sigmar. For my money, it'll probably be Disciples of Tzeentch or the Slaanesh equivalent when that inevitably occurs.
Yep. Whipping boys of Slaanesh, yeah.
Yeah, whatever they are, the pimp daddies of Slaanesh.
Oh, well, we do have like a character on Overlord with a top hat, so there's nothing.
Yeah, well, why not? I think a pimp cane and a top hat and some tails would look great on a Slaanesh miniature, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm all over that as an idea.
Me too. I mean, well, cultists are easy in Slaanesh. It seems to me that what they're trying to do for each of the Chaos powers, both in 40k and in AOS, is there are certain patterns. So you've got like the warrior equivalent. And then you've got like the mortal equivalent. So in the Disciples of Tzeentch, it's the cultists.
Yeah.
Those are the mortal characters. And I think they're fantastic. I think that's really cool because they are significantly different from the mortal characters in, say, the Blades of Khorne, which are the Blood Reavers, the tribal characters. Interestingly, the Maggotkin don't have one.
No, they don't, do they?
They're all warriors.
Yeah.
They are all warriors. They're all the Blightspawn and whatnot. They're not. They don't have the equivalent of, say, what the Death Guard have in 40k. They have the Poxwalkers and Chaos Cultists.
That's a very good point, and one I hadn't considered.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I would have thought that if any of the Chaos powers would be fantastic to have a mortal equivalent of it would be Nurgle. It would be the obvious thing, hordes of diseased farmers and poor people and whatnot. In fact, I mean, they could have just adapted the Poxwalkers kit and just got rid of the science fiction-y elements and used them.
Yeah, but, I'm surprised by that, actually, now you come to mention
I'm quite surprised. I'm quite surprised at that. Slaanesh is really easy, because Slaanesh armies have always been described in the background as coming to war with these carnivals of mortal followers who are engaged in, quite frankly, the most obscene things you can imagine. That's both in 40k and in AOS. Yeah. So they could just do that. They could just do like the Carnival of Slaanesh, where you've got miniature... I mean, obviously they won't depict them doing terribly obscene things, but they could just do that. They could be painted. They could be like Harlequin-esque. They're dancing, they're pirouetting, as chaff, as fodder. Very easy to do.
And it opens up a whole new idea for modelling as well.
It's so much fun.
Sheer amount of stuff you could do with the idea of a Slaaneshi carnival.
So much fun. I mean, there's a lot of inspiration in the Horus Heresy books. Obviously, if you read Angel Exterminatus, there's a point where Fulgrim and the Emperor's children are approaching Perturabo and the Iron Warriors, and the Iron Warriors and Perturabo are looking out at their cousins at this vast parade that they're at the heart of, and they are absolutely shuddered by it.
Yeah,
they're absolutely shuddered by what they see, because not only have the Emperor's children mutilated and remade and reconfigured themselves, but the mortals with them are in such states of obscenity. It actually shudders the Space Marines, That's how obscene and unpleasant the carnivals of Slaanesh are.
Yeah.
But something that reflects that would be rather nice.
My brain is ticking over time and I need to make it stop. I've just started creating a really cool Slaaneshi style carnival idea with various trucks and things being pulled along, and
cavalcades, and you have like obscenely bloated cyberites being carried along by their servants, feeding them whatever the hell. That kind of thing would be absolutely wonderful.
But if you think about like the sort of 1920s freak shows, that's where my mind's going, because that's a lot of ideas there could turn into something very Slaaneshi very quickly, very easily. Right.
There's so many influences you could draw on. So many influences. I mean, Clive Barker is an obvious one, because there is already such a heavy Barkerian influence in Slaanesh. Essentially it's Cenobites, H.R. Giger's artwork would be fantastic. H.R. Giger's artwork would be absolutely wonderful. But also classical artwork. You can look to things like satyrs, for example.
Yeah.
ancient Greek stories and that kind of thing would be a very good place to go. So yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with that, because I've no doubt they will. I've no doubt in my mind that they will, and are going to very soon.
It's incoming, man. It's incoming.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm in two minds about one of the more recent rumor engines they put up. You know that sword that they put up?
Yeah.
With the blebs on it. Now, it does, I mean, a lot of people have said it does look like swords from the Genestealer cults range. And it does to a certain degree. But I've got a funny sneaking suspicion it's actually a red herring.
Mm-hmm.
Because they very rarely, the Genestealer cults are absolutely imminent. They're very soon. I mean, we're just waiting on the announcement for them, really.
Yeah, next month I think it is.
I think so. They very rarely put out the rumor engine model images that close to a release.
It's true enough, yeah.
It's usually something down the line. To me, there are certain stylistic things in that blade that make it not a Genestealer cult blade. Mm-hmm. It looks to me way more like a Slaanesh blade.
You could be onto something there.
Way more like a Slaanesh blade. It's too elegant for Genestealer cults. It's too sort of curvaceous and too...
It's too manufactured.
Yeah, exactly that. It doesn't look like a bone sword.
No.
And it's not practical enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole thing with the Tyranids and the Genestealer cults is their weaponry is usable. It's practical. It's evolved or developed or created based on practicality, the most efficient way of dispatching an enemy, yeah? Mm-hmm. This doesn't look like that. It looks like it's designed to cause pain. Which is way more Slaanesh-y.
I was going to say, do you not mean it's it's way more George.
Yeah, absolutely, it's way more George, yeah. And I understand why people do think it's a Genestealer cult blade, because they are imminent, and it does have those 3 blebs on it that a lot of the Genestealer cult swords have, the sort of poison receptacles.
Yes.
To me, they don't look like that, though. They look like soul stones.
Mm-hmm. Which would fit quite nicely with a 40k version of Slaanesh, just going around stealing the souls out of people with a sword.
Well, almost all of the more recent Slaaneshi miniatures do have soul stones on them.
Yes.
Lucius the Eternal's got a couple on him. So, you know, I won't say for certain that it is a Slaaneshi blade, but I think it is.
But the chances are that it is. I think you're very much in the right
chances
period
are
there. Yeah.
That I think it is. And I think that the resemblance to the Genestealer cult swords is a red herring.
Yes. Monsters.
I think you're supposed to think that.
God damn it, GW. God damn it. Look at you. Look at you.
Have you been watching, by the way, have you been watching the Stormcast?
I've been listening to it.
Yeah?
It's pretty cool. It's really nice.
It's fine. I mean, it's a nice sort of little... It's a bit short.
But it's also 3 times a week. So.
Absolutely. And it's designed to just tell you what's happening, really, and to get under the skin, under the hood of things. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. I've liked the segments with Phil Kelly where he's talking about the background. He's giving, like, oblique references to what might be happening out there, you know?
Yeah. I think it's really cool they got Jervis Johnson.
Yeah, God, legend.
Yeah,
eh?
it's always nice to hear Jervis's voice. He's just got such a lovely voice.
He does have a lovely voice. He's got a very deep voice, doesn't he?
Yes.
Very deep voice. And also to hear from someone who has been in the industry for that long and has seen all of its vacillations and its ups and downs, you know, that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. Really interesting to me.
And the guys who've got hosting it, they are really good.
Yeah, they're very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
They're very happy at what they're doing, and that's cool. That's really cool to see. It just needs. It's like Warhammer TV. You know, it could do with just evolving a little bit now,
and it will.
And it will. It will. Once it finds its feet, we'll get more. I'd like a bit more meat on the bones.
Yeah,
you know.
But it's existed for 3 weeks now. 2 weeks.
Yep.
I think it's only 2 weeks. Yeah. So I'm happy to wait and see what it evolves into, and I think that's something that's going to be very interesting. I mean. Mostly the Stormcast can't be much more than it is now due to the nature of what it has to be.
Of course, there's certain stuff, obviously, they can't talk about.
Yeah, and there's certain ways that, because it is attached to a business, it has to exist in a certain... it has to go on a certain shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you will never, for example, get them saying stuff like, "Oh, I don't like this range that's coming out now." No. That, you know, it's just not. It's not the way it will happen.
No.
But what I do like about it, it's a very good place for getting to grips with what is happening.
Yes, and it's nice
because
to
they
get
know.
a face and voice to some of the people who are working behind the scenes that you don't often hear about.
Absolutely,
That's the thing that excites me the most about it. You're talking to
you can see what
lead
they're
designers.
doing. You can see where they're coming from and what their thought process is, and I really like that. I really like the fact that it's not so distant anymore.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it makes Games Workshop more human.
Yeah.
And that's something they've been working towards for the last couple of years, and it impresses me that they've managed to hit the gate, come out the gate swinging with something like this.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's weird that there's only one for Age of Sigmar, that there isn't one for 40k.
I'm sure they will measure the relative popularity of the Stormcast, and they'll do one for 40k. I've no doubt there'll be one for 40. They'll call it the Vox or something,
Yeah. The Emperor speaks.
Yeah, something like that. The Astronomicon would be a good one, wouldn't it? Yeah, I've no doubt there will be that equivalent, or maybe they'll just mingle the shows together. Maybe. It'd be quite cool if it was Age of Sigmar day
1 and then day 2 was 40k. So
it was 40k.
Yeah. I mean, there's ways
again,
like
it's
one of those things where I'm actually really enjoying it. I do wish it was longer, but then again, it's out 3 times a week, so. Yeah.
Well, as I say, I think the best thing about it is the fact that you can gauge what's going. There are little subtle hints as to what might be happening, both in background and game terms, and you get an idea for the new dynamics when there are things like AOS 2.0, what their thought process was behind it, which is really cool. That's really cool indeed.
Agreed. I think. Hang on a sec, George. Are you saying that current modern Games Workshop have a tendency of sneaking things in there that you need to look between the lines to understand?
Oh, no,
I wouldn't
presume.
That, George? Yeah.
I wouldn't presume. No, I wouldn't presume. But yes, absolutely, that's exactly what I'm saying. They do it. I love it. They do it in very subtle ways that makes me go back through the White Dwarfs over the last couple of years and think, so how much have they actually sneaked into photographs and whatnot, like miniatures that were never released at the time?
Yeah.
Quite a lot, actually.
Yeah, what they're getting very good at doing, in a sneaky roundabout manner, is the production cycle for these things is roughly about a year. So they've been sneaking stuff in for quite some time now in order to see who's paying attention.
Yeah, sort of plant the suggestion.
I mean, the giant orc thing that was in the back of a White Dwarf a couple of months ago. The thing that's just right in the background and you can't quite make it out.
Actually, you need to buy the new White Dwarf because it's in it.
Is it in there?
It's in there, yes. It's it is not a miniature in and of itself, sadly.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is a shame. It's actually a very brilliantly converted Dread Knight.
Oh, is that what it is?
It's a beautifully converted Dread Knight, because there is actually a battle report with the orcs, interestingly.
I wonder why.
I wonder why that could be, and why they go over the wars for Armageddon. I wonder why.
So one of the things I want to do in the next couple of months, hopefully before the orcs actually hit, is I think it'd be quite cool to start and go through the entire history of the War of Armageddon.
That would be, the wars.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue, you are right, you could argue that the war never ended. It's just that planet. I mean, they could just rename it Bad Luck. Bad Juju, or something like that, because that's what it is, isn't it?
It is.
It's the hard luck world. I mean, at the very least, saying that, at least it's still standing.
It's true.
Unlike Cadia.
Because I think there's quite a lot. So I think possibly one of the sanctioned episodes will have a look at going through the entirety of Armageddon.
Yeah, I'd love that, because it's really interesting.
It is.
I mean, the First War, I love the fact that most people alive don't even know about the First War for Armageddon, because it was expunged by the Inquisition because of the nature of it. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I also love the fact that it set up this wonderful enmity between the Inquisition and the Space Wolves, because the people that the Space Wolves fought alongside in that war, that they helped to save, were all killed.
Yes.
They're all massacred or herded off to camps by the Inquisition because they saw too much.
And there's one
They
thing you
saw
don't
what
want
they
to
were
happen
not
to you
supposed to.
if you're in the Inquisition. If you're in the Imperium, you do not want to be seeing too much.
You definitely don't, no, because the Inquisition, they will be on you.
Like,
They will come down on you like a ton of bricks.
they will be all over you like flies on a nurgling.
They will. Bloody hell. But I love that. I mean, there is still, and I don't know how, whether it is just rumour baiting or what, but there is still this pervasive rumour going about that when the Space Wolves come back, they will not be exactly Imperial. They may not necessarily be Chaos, but I kind of hope that they are almost like Renegade,
Mm-hmm.
They are still fighting for the ideals of the original Imperium.
Yeah.
But not for the Imperium as it stands now.
Mm-hmm.
That would make me very happy. And I hope they use that moment in the War for Armageddon as a linchpin in it. Because I know that Logan Grimnar hates the Inquisition as a result of that.
What I think would be interesting would be a return to... I can't remember what the wording would be for it, but the different areas of the Inquisition and how they all now look at each other with the return of Roboot.
Oh, yes.
Because there are certain mindsets in the Inquisition that will welcome him with open arms. But then there are going to be other ones that what do you mean he was brought
Absolutely.
back by the Eldar? Heresy!
Well, there are certain factions within both the Imperium and the Inquisition that just wouldn't want him back anyway.
Completely. Well, look
No
at
matter
what
how
he's
he
done
was
already,
brought back. Yeah, hasn't he purged the rulers of Terra?
Yep.
Aren't they gone now?
Yes, they are. The High Lords of Terra have been kicked out.
I like the fact that it skims over exactly what he did as well. It never tells you exactly what he did.
Mm-hmm.
It just says they're gone.
Have you read Dark Imperium yet?
I haven't yet.
Right.
No.
Dark Imperium is, well, to be honest with you, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, very good. But its strength doesn't come from the usual 40k stuff. The gun porn and action, that's not great. The way it's written isn't wonderful.
Yeah.
The power of it comes from all the interpersonal relationships.
You know what? That's generally true of the literature, to be honest. I often find that the writers for Black Library, particularly in the 40k setting, they want to tell a story of characters primarily.
Yes.
And the gun porn, the bolter porn stuff is just in there because that's what's expected of a Black Library novel, So it is inevitably less well written than the rest because it's not what the writer wants to write.
There's the bits that stick out in my mind are Roboot and his... I was going to call him the Remembrancer, but he's not a Remembrancer. But he employs somebody from the Imperial cult,
right,
to be the person that the cult can look to when...
So like an ambassador
yeah.
of some sort.
So that when Roboot... Because Roboot does not believe in the Imperial cult in any way, shape or form, as he always says. My father was not a god. Also, my father is a dick.
Yes, and my father was a failure, for that matter.
That goes all through the Dark Imperium book. Roboot, by the end of it, he hates his father.
Wow, that's really interesting.
There's a really cool sequence where he talks about how he hates the fallen legions, but he pities them. Yeah, but his father lied. His father kept the truth from everybody. His father is no longer his father. His father doesn't see his sons as his sons. There's a wonderful sequence, and I've got to read that. There's an absolute... I'm trying my best not to spoil anything, but there's a wonderful sequence where he very briefly skims over the conversation he had with his father, and how he came to realise that his father works on such a different level to how anybody else was, that he now understands that the Emperor never saw his sons as his sons. He acted that way in order to get them to do what he wanted. But he now sees them as tools. There's a wonderful sequence where he greets Roboot, but he greets him not as a father greeting his son, but as an artificer welcoming a long-lost tool.
Ooh, I like that a lot. I do,
And it oh my god, this is good.
Yeah, that's brilliant. More of that, please. Yeah, way more of that. I want to see that, particularly in Roboot. You know, I really want to see that because it gives him edge, doesn't it?
Well, it made
it
Roboot
really
into
does.
a really interesting character in my eyes.
Yeah, because that makes me wonder, what is he playing at? What's he doing?
Also,
because he can't want to foster the Imperium that his father wanted to bring about.
No. One of the things I found really cool in there is that Roboot is not the man that he was.
Yeah.
He is aged, he is worn, he is tired. You know, coming out and finding the Imperium as it is now, it's robbed him of a lot of his vitality.
Wow, that's really fascinating. That, because, you know, the stuff that he's proclaiming now and the stuff that he's experiencing is not a million miles away from what drove a lot of the others to chaos.
No, it's not. There's another wonderful scene where he's talking about how his father is not a god. Yeah, he is a man. And his ambassador to the Imperial cult says, you yourself have often said that you are not a man. Robot, I am not a normal man, no. I am to the Space Marines as they are to you. And my father is to me what I am to the Space Marines. So your father is a god. No, he is not a god. But he has the power of a god and acts like a god. Does that not make him a god? Yeah. And Roboot just stands there for a few minutes going, well, shit.
Yeah, it's a fair point, isn't it? Yeah. So basically everything that the Emperor sort of conditioned Roboot with is kind of a lie. It's kind of a lie, and it kind of feeds into this notion that perhaps the Emperor intended all of this.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's very much what the book kind of pushes at, but never comes out and says.
There's a wider plan at work here, which is really interesting, isn't it? I mean, I wonder if they'll ever go back to like the really old stuff. You know, the old stuff in The Lost and the Damned, where it tells you basically exactly what the Emperor is doing.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be left open now.
Yeah, they'll never explain it, but it would be very interesting, wouldn't it? Because can you imagine if they ever brought the Sensei back?
Oh, God, that would be amazing.
The children of the Emperor. There's no reason they couldn't do it and then just do it obliquely.
Well, they kind of have done over the years, haven't they? They've often thrown the idea in there, but not ever done much with it, just left it as
I suppose just logically, I mean, the Emperor's been around since the beginning of human history, more or less, yeah?
Yeah.
He must have sired children.
Oh, of course he has, yes.
So there must be bloodlines out there that have that divinity within them, that have that some degree of that power in them. So those children, those descendants, must be wandering around there somewhere.
Do you know what would be a really interesting story? One where there is a portion of either the Imperial cult or the Inquisition that exists to find, hunt out, and possibly destroy that bloodline.
Oh yeah, that would be fascinating, because there can be only one.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. I mean, you could make it really dark.
Oh, yeah.
You could make it really dark. You could have it so that you could actually tie it into the metaphysics of the universe, right? So we know that at one stage in humanity's evolution, you have this spontaneous outbreak of psychers, yeah? What if that's as a result of the bloodlines the Emperor sired, and he did it deliberately to feed himself when he ended up on the Golden Throne, to swell himself so he could become like a new power?
That would be very cool.
All of humanity and all of history has been his tool for ascension. And all this bollocks about, keeping humanity safe and blah, 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 blah. No. It's all been a game. It's all been to secure his own ascension. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It really would.
I would be so happy with that.
Because I know that there's a thought process that, in the same way that is it something like 87% of humans who are alive today have a have some kind of genetic link to Genghis Khan.
That's right, because of the way he put it. The same is true of Charlemagne.
Yeah.
Basically, almost every human being that's alive at the moment has some relationship to Charlemagne, like genetic relationship to him. It's one of those timescale things. So it's entirely possible that all of humanity at this point is descended from the Emperor.
It is.
It's entirely possible.
Here's another thought, though. What if that's what psychers are?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the Emperor devours his own children in order to stay alive. That
this is exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
you know, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And but what I also like the idea of is because of his degree of precognition, he foresaw it all and did it deliberately because it's maybe the only path or something like that.
So to kind of tie in both of the sort of concepts here into one, that. The idea, I love this idea. I love this to bits. That basically, I just wanted to say the words "devour his own children." I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, that could be the title of the episode.
The Emperor eats his children. But the concept of everything was planned from the very beginning. That the Emperor has to devour his own children in order to become who he is, where he is, and what's going on now. But then has to create the Primarchs in order to create the bulwark against everything else, so he is allowed to keep cannibalizing himself.
But not only that, he had to create the Primarch so that the Horus Heresy would happen, that he would be deified.
Yep.
You know, he would be martyred essentially and deified, so that the level of worship in him would also feed him.
Mm-hmm. But then you can have the wonderful idea of the Emperor's splintered mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the psychic, the psychic powers that his children have, isn't psychic powers as such, but it is the splinter elements of the Emperor in each of his children,
sort of fed out through humanity, and diversified through humanity.
That's why he has to devour them again to reabsorb his own splintered mentalities in order to create more to get back out there again.
Mm-hmm. To become a new power, essentially.
Well, it becomes he becomes the Ouroboros this way.
Yeah. That's really cool.
I'm actually quite excited about this as a concept.
Yeah, I like that because it sets up the 40k universe as a paradox.
Yeah. He has to
really
devour himself in order to create more of himself, in order to devour himself to create more, in order to keep the light, the Astromonicon
cycle
open.
Going, essentially. Yeah, I like that. I do like that a lot. Well, it's one of those eternal debates, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Was the Emperor wrong? Did he get things terribly wrong? In which case, he's far from divine. He's a bit of an idiot, quite frankly.
Yes.
Or did he intend it all?
Mm-hmm.
For me, the only way you can come down on it, given his lapses in judgment, is that he must have intended it all.
Yeah.
He must have intended it all. It would be sheer idiocy on his part to do what he did with Magnus, Lorgar, and Horus, and Angron, and Mortarion, and Perturabo, quite frankly. Being the scion of humanity that he is, and knowing humanity as he does, and knowing these creatures on even a genetic level, because he created them, he must have known how they would have responded.
Yeah.
So he set them on their paths, each and every one of them. The big one for me is Angron.
Yes.
Because there's no good reason for why the Emperor did what he did. The others I could put down to a lapse in judgment, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Angron, there's no reason why the Emperor couldn't have taken to the field with him. And helped the gladiators on Nuceria, which would have made Angron probably his most loyal son.
Yes, it would have. Oh my word!
Would it not?
Yeah. Another one just pops up in my mind. Thingy. Oh, good grief! The first heretic.
Oh, Lorgar.
Yes. So look at the beginning of that, where the planet gets smashed to bits.
Oh, right. Monarchia gets destroyed by the Ultramarines. Right. Yeah,
and it is purely as a way of saying
an act of spite. Really.
Yeah. It's don't treat me as a god.
Yeah, stop this.
When in reality, allowing that to carry on, but under control, to control it rather than to suppress it, would have...
Yes, to direct it. Yeah.
That...
Because it's what happened anyway.
Oh my word, yeah.
It's what happened anyway, isn't it? So
of course that's on purpose.
As well.
Of course, oh my word, the Emperor isn't
totally
an idiot.
It's totally on purpose, isn't it? It's totally on purpose, isn't it? It's got to be.
Yeah,
it's absolutely got to be on purpose.
He's an egotistical madman. He's not an idiot.
No. He must have known what he was doing. He must have known that placing Perturabo and the Iron Warriors into these grinding siege wars where they were not getting any accolades and whatnot would have pushed them away from him and more towards Horus's side. He must have known that making Horus the War Master would have placed too much on his shoulders, thus making him easy prey for the Chaos Powers.
And he also explains why he didn't tell anybody about the Chaos Powers, because if they'd known, they would have been more protected.
The only one who knew was Magnus.
Yeah.
Because Magnus obviously knows about the warp. I mean, it's he swims it often enough, even at that point.
Hello, I'm going for a swim in the warp. Splash, splash.
Yeah, but that's where they met, isn't it? That's where they first
yeah.
met, the Emperor and Magnus. They actually met long before they met in person. Because they met in the warp.
My God.
Yeah. The only way of looking at it, it seems to me, is that he intended these things to happen, and that the falls of each of the traitor Primarchs was manipulated somehow. It was masterminded.
It was all purposeful.
Yeah.
Because then that leads up to the interesting question: does the Emperor care about humanity, or is it all self?
I'm not sure. It depends on what his end game is, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
Which is oblique. It's very difficult to determine. Is he doing it to secure humanity's future, or is he doing it to secure his own?
Yeah.
Who knows? Because we're in the God game here. So the stakes are on another plane. Individual species like humanity may not matter very much.
No.
Certainly not to a creature that can perceive in the way that the Emperor can.
This has blown my mind, George.
To me, it's the only way of looking at it. Because the only other way of looking at it is that the Emperor is a moron.
Yes.
He has to be a moron because, he's been alive for so long. He must be able to perceive, he must preempt every reaction any creature he interacts with has. So he must be able to calculate everything that he does to elicit the reactions he wants.
Yeah. And that's exactly what... Oh, man.
He must, logically speaking...
George, so I know that you're trying to get stuff into the Black Library.
Yes.
Please do it.
I'm working on it.
I demand this story. I demand it.
I need the gate open. That's all I need. I need the door open, and then I'll be in.
That's incredible. Right then, so
yes,
shall we start closing the doors and start closing
I think
up?
We should. Yes,
so then, ladies and gentlemen, after that mind-blowing conversation that, I don't know about you, but it's rocked my world, a little bit of housekeeping, that's the word I'm after. The brain has now decided just to completely leave and has gone out the door, and it's now just sitting in a nice calm pool somewhere. So, the Patreon continues. It's got a couple of tiers in there. We've got a $1 and a $3 tier. The $1 gets you the extra shows. The $3 gets you the extra shows plus a collection of readings and other sorted goodness. And they update 3 times a week. So you are getting all the Malign Portents readings and you are getting various short stories. They're all the ones from the YouTube, but in a higher MP3 format and in a much nicer manner. And it costs less than a sandwich to do so. So you get, if you are on a $3 tier, you get 3 updates a week. You get the extra shows and you get the extra readings. Sanctioned will be kicking off this month properly. The first episode is going to be out in the next week or so, depending on when you hear this. And it is going to be all about H.P. Lovecraft. And that is going to be a monthly release. And at some point in the next couple of weeks, the Season 2 of Crawlhammer X-Quest will be hitting.
Fabulous.
So there's plenty of stuff going on over the Patreon. Seriously, the amount of stuff that you get from the Patreon, I'm actually half tempted to put it up to about $10. I'm not going to, but you're getting a lot out of it.
It's fair, as Patreons go, it's fairly decent. We like to give you a bang for your buck.
Also, if you're a Patreon and you're on the $3 tier, in the next couple of months, it means that you can get a Fluffenhammer t-shirt for a massive discount. Because we're going to have some t-shirts coming out. Our resident artist, Adam Warden, has done some amazing work
Fabulous stuff.
That's all going to be happening in the next couple of months. What else do I need to say? The YouTube channel, you can find that on YouTube, obviously. You can find us at fluffenhammer.weebly.com. We're going to be going to a co.uk site in the next couple of months as well, as we've now got enough money in the piggy bank to be able to do that, which is nice. What else do I need to tell you? Oh, there's probably so much and I've forgotten it. It's there's so much going on at any given time that it's hard to remember it all. We have a Tumblr page. It's just the same stuff that's going up on the website. But, you know, if you have Tumblr, give us a follow. We have a Twitter, which I'm starting to use on a more regular basis, which obviously is twitter.com/Fluffenhammer. Give us a shout on there if you're not a fan of Facebook. And obviously there is the Facebook group, which keeps growing from strength to strength. It's
a nice community. I like the Facebook group a lot.
I've actually had a few people who've joined us thank me for us having such a nice community. You know, it's nice to see that this type of thing can happen, especially at the moment where there is so much howling and wailing out there, and not just in the games world.
Of the teeth.
Oh yeah,
no, it's really not. It's a pervasive thing at the moment. You know, a new cartoon comes out, and suddenly you get like 30 and 40-year-old men having a go at it. And it's sort of like, come on.
Well, the one I discovered this week that apparently a poor actress who was in the latest Star Wars film was driven off Twitter
because of, well, morons who need to get a life.
Yeah, and it's
quite frankly,
it's a discussion that I've had multiple times this week of, for God's sakes, really, is this the hill you need to die on? Yeah.
I don't like to say it because I love all this stuff. I love toys and miniatures and cartoons as much as anyone of my generation, but grow the fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unnecessary.
Grow up.
If you don't find joy in something, don't do it.
You know what? Go and watch the original Star Wars again and try to do it objectively. It ain't as good as you remember. All right?
No, well, I'm not going to get started on my dislike of Star Wars.
Actually, I'm just being a bitch. I'm just being a bitch because the actress is driven off Twitter by morons. You know, I'm just being unpleasant now. But I also do feel that. So yeah, come at me, bros.
I think that's actually the most outwardly violent I've ever heard you. Normally you're a lot more insidious than that.
I am, yeah.
I think that is all of the housework. Well, of course, there's the Fluff and Meat. It's coming. It's in Nottingham in October. There will be things starting to pop out about that as time goes along. At the moment, my eyes are pretty much focused on something in August, and once that's done and out the way, we're going to be kicking off getting stuff done for that. The fun thing about August is that a lot of us are going to be all together in one place for TF Nation, and we're going to be able to get quite a lot of stuff done there, I think. And
which is going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to doing stuff face to face. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because we haven't a chance really yet.
No. So that's good.
That will be cool.
So I've got a couple of ideas for stuff I want to do there. That's it. I think that's it. So, George.
Cool.
Is there anything you want to get out there into the universe?
Yes. My partner Nick Hardy, my business partner Nick Hardy, and I were going to be going to the London HorrorCon later this month. Unfortunately, that is now been pushed back to September because the con has been moved. But we are going to be attending the HorrorCon in September. We're going to have a table there. We're going to have lots of products, including my short story collections, Nick's photographs, posters, all sorts of stuff. So if you like your horror and you like your rather distressing imagery, then come along and say hi. You can find our stuff at strangeplaygrounds.com, and you can find my own podcast, the Strange Playgrounds podcast, which deals with horror and disturbia, over at Exaggerated Elegy here on YouTube. And you can also find me at Enigmatic Elegy on Twitter.
Awesome. When is the HorrorCon and where is it?
The HorrorCon is, it's a very good question. I knew when it was originally. It's sometime in September now. And it is somewhere in London, which is not terribly specific. But I will endeavour to get that out there, that information out there at some point.
It's a little bit of a community ask. Adam White, who was on the the show a couple of weeks back. He's asked that I can just quickly mention that there is a free RPG day on the 16th of June at the Flower and Flagon in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
And it is going to be a ton of RPGs. You can just turn up and learn how to play various RPGs. It says ranging from classic D&D to Star Wars, cyberpunk fantasy neoscapes, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer style monster hunting. Character creation workshops, some miniature paintings. In the evening, there will be RPG Appalooza. That's really hard to say.
It is hard to say, isn't it?
Which is bring your home game and revel in the biggest showing of RPG communities that Manchester has ever seen.
That sounds like loads of fun.
There will be focuses on making it safe spaces for people. So if you are worried about being around that larger group of people, or you've got any concerns about how people will react to you as a person, that it is built especially for people to turn up to feel safe in order to experience the joys of RPGing. I think that is something that is well worth your time. I'm going to try my best to get there. Manchester is not that far away from me as such. It all depends on timing and whatnot.
Yeah.
Timing and cash. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm just about to move into a bigger house. I'm going to get married next year, and I'm going to Florida for my honeymoon. So I have literally no cash.
Excellent hobby to be in that instance.
Hey, to be honest with you, I probably pay less now than I did when I was collecting toys.
Yeah, you probably do.
Because I just buy one big box and then one little box a month. I'm so poor. Oh yeah, and also dog. Dog takes up most of my cash and time.
Yes.
So with all that being said, then we will get out of here. Thank you very much, George, for your time this morning.
Pleasure, as always. And thanks to our listeners, by the way, as always. We're massively appreciative.
We love all our little fluffers.
We do.
All the fluffers. Keep fluffing. Bye.
From the depths of